On March 27th, Destiny 2 is going to receive its most significant Sandbox update since the launch of the game, and of course this is something that players have wanted to see for quite some time. So in this video, for players who are wondering, what's going to be good after this update, or what is going to be worth trying out, I wanted to list 20 weapons which I think are going to be worth watching in the March 27th update. Before we get specifically into the weapon stuff though, what is it that we can really expect as far as Sandbox goes inside of the update? Well, of course, movement in general has been looked at quite considerably. Players are going to be able to run faster, jump and glide faster. So in general, movement and aerial ability is going to feel more influential in the game. Some of the subclasses that need love, the Arc Strider and the Dawnblade, are being reworked. Combat abilities in general are going to be much more readily available. Super cooldowns have been reduced. Mods that reduce grenade melee and class ability are going to be much more influential. And of course, this is on top of the weapon changes that we'll be seeing in this update. It's no lie that we want to see significant change to the game and how it feels. So before I get into this, it's worth noting that pretty much everything in the game is actually going to get better. There are no weapons or archetypes that are going to become, bad inside of this update. So everything that's currently meta or is currently good is probably still going to have its place secured inside of the Sandbox. But on top of the stuff that's already good feeling better, we should be looking at some pretty considerable changes to some of the underused archetypes in the game, as well as some of the influential bonuses. So let's talk about hand cannons. There's going to be increased accuracy for consoles. This is hipfire and ADS, and we're going to see increased damage in PvE at base. So this is going to affect every single hand cannon in the game. When it comes to things like better devils, it's only going to get better. But there are some other weapons to consider as well. So you have the aggressive frame hand cannons. In particular, True Prophecy is going to be pretty interesting. This archetype is very consistent right now in PvP and PvE, and the explosive payload perk is actually being buffed on this weapon. So timed payload will split damage 55 explosive and 45 direct instead of the previous split, which was more direct damage. Basically, the explosive element is going to get better. So it's definitely worth keeping your eye on. We also have Midnight Coup. Of course, bear in mind there is going to be a base buff to all of these, but on top of this, for Midnight Coup, there will be a buff to the Rampaged perk, which will increase the damage and the duration of the effect. This is a really solid bonus in PvE and PvP content, so it's possible that on console in particular, Midnight Coup is going to become very prominent. You also have things like the Old Fashioned. Now this one comes with Kill Clip. That's going to increase PvE damage, and it's actually getting a buff to do more damage. So if you're into this archetype in PvE content, they're going to be pretty solid. And of course, with the changes, it's going to make this hand cannon much more consistent in PvP. It's also worth giving a shout out to the Dire Promise, which is the Dead Orbit hand cannon in the same archetype, that one coming with triple tap. But a slightly more unusual one that is seeing a pretty significant change is a Cold Sweat. So this is a precision frame hand cannon. On top of the accuracy changes, precision multiplier is being increased, so basically it's going to do more damage. And it also has the perk Grave Robber, which is being buffed to load 0.5 to the magazine instead of 0.3. In particular though, I think those middle of the road hand cannons, Midnight Coup and the Old Fashioned, those have some potential to really shine. If I was going to pick an exotic in the hand cannon slot, I would totally look at the Sunshot. It's already a great hand cannon, and it's only going to get better in PvE content especially. Sunshot will also be getting a significant exotic buff, but that will come in May. Now let's talk about the pulse rifles though. So the Darkest Before, this is of course the Trials of the 9 Pulse. This is getting a base damage increase, which is effective in PvP as well as PvE. Now the rapid fire frame archetype of pulse rifle is already pretty much the best inside of the Crucible. It's very competitive against even things like Uriel's Gift. And with the change to 450 RPM autos, which is going to reduce their range, things like Darkest Before, also Autumn Wind, Time Worn Spire, anything in the rapid fire frame archetype, these are going to rock PvP, quite literally. Next though, we have the Nightshade. This will see a base damage and lightweight precision modifier increase, so damage across the board for the Nightshade will be increased. That's PvP and PvE. And of course, Nightshade has Kill Clip, and this is getting a buff to increase its damage in PvE content. Perhaps one of the more exciting weapons would be the Inaugural Address. So the adaptive frame archetype of pulse rifle is having a rate of fire increase, so it's actually going to fire faster. On top of this, it's having a base damage increase as well. So it's going to do more damage than it does right now, but it's also going to fire faster, so in terms of DPS, it's getting a pretty significant buff. Then when you consider that it has a kill clip, which is getting a PvE buff, Inaugural Address will be one of the most affected weapons inside of this Sandbox update. Next though, we have the Legal Action 2. I don't have a ton of faith that these are going to become incredible all of a sudden, but it's worth mentioning because the high impact frame archetype is getting a rate of fire buff as well as a base damage buff, much like the adaptive frame pulse is, but Legal Action also has a Rampage, which is being buffed for more damage and it's going to last longer, so there's certainly some hope for the high impact frame pulses. Now let's talk about Scout Rifles. Not too much is really changing here. Scout Rifles will see a generic PvE buff, so they're only going to get better once again. The Nameless Midnight is not going anywhere. But in terms of different things, we have the Conspirator. This comes from the Leviathan raid. This is going to see a buff to base PvE damage. I think it's certainly going to make it pretty interesting. More importantly though, there will be a buff to the Dragonfly perk that's on this weapon, so it will be seeing higher damage and a larger blast radius. One of the Sandbox designers from Bungie did also say that Dragonfly is now actually comparable to Firefly inside of this update. If that's the case, this is certainly going to be one to look out for. We also have the Pleiades Corrector, the FWC Scout Rifle, and it's worth bearing in mind because there will be a buff to Rampage coming in this update. The only specific archetype inside of the Scout Rifle family that's changing will be the high impact frame Scout Rifles, so I think the exotic pick for this one would have to be the Jade Rabbit. I doubt that we're going to see, you know, a significant archetypal change to these Scout Rifles. The main reason for that is just because of the level of, you know, damage change that we'd really need to see in order for them to feel different in the game, especially in PvP content, but we don't know the exact numbers yet, so I wouldn't completely sleep on it. Now I wanted to talk about auto rifles. So these aren't seeing any blanket change apart from that 450 RPM autos are having a range and accuracy decrease. So this should take the edge off things like Uriel's Gift, especially in the Crucible. There are some weapons that are going to benefit from this patch. So Ghost Primus, firstly, this one of course comes with high impact reserves, and high impact reserves is actually getting a buff to damage in PvE content. And Ghost Primus is already pretty good. You also have things like the Number, which comes with high impact reserves. So in PvE, these autos are actually going to be a little bit stronger than they are right now. There is also the Origin Story, which is going to see a buff to the Rampage perk, so more damage and it's going to last longer. And of course, Positive Outlook comes with Kill Clip. That is a bonus that is getting a buff. So mostly PvE buffs as far as auto rifles go, but that certainly isn't a bad thing. There are a couple of SMGs worth listing. So SMGs are going to see increased damage and ammo inventory. In PvP, not too much should change. One of the noticeable things is that you'll probably get more value from the Grave Robber perk than before because it's getting a buff and it's present on so many SMGs. But of course, Anti-OP, our good friend, this is going to get a buff to Kill Clip, which will affect it inside of PvE content. It's also worth mentioning the Conqueror, which is from the Forge on Mercury, also has Kill Clip. And then because SMGs are going to do more damage and get more ammo inside of PvE content, one to look out for could be the Risk Runner. Having that bonus ammo inventory is definitely going to be very solid for this weapon. Now, when it comes to sidearms, there are a lot of changes, and this is going to influence quite a few weapons. So increased PvE damage, more accuracy in general, which includes PvP, an increase to ammo carry, an increase to minimum range, a movement bonus while aiming. So either for PvP or PvE, there are going to be a ton of interesting weapons. We have Traveler's Judgment. This is already a great weapon. It's a burst sidearm with Headseeker, and it's only getting better. We have the Rattler. This is one of the Vice sidearms coming with Kill Clip, which is getting buffed in PvE. There's also 11th Hour, and this has Rampage, which is getting a pretty significant buff. The Omelon sidearms, so Eulogy, this is getting a buff with the Grave Robber perk, and then there's also the Last Hope, which is already very, very good in PvP stuff. So because of all of the base changes that we're seeing, as well as the changes to so many perks that are on these weapons, sidearms, I think, are going to be very prevalent inside of the Crucible. If I was going to pick an exotic, I would say the Rat King. Of course, there aren't that many exotic sidearms, but it will be getting more ammo, more accuracy, and the invisibility is going to be pretty interesting inside of a fast sandbox, you know? If you get that invis and then you're Titan skating around or something like that, could be pretty influential. There's a couple more classes of weapons worth mentioning. So shotguns, they're getting more PvE damage, they're getting more ammo to actually carry. So Perfect Paradox, this fires fast, it has Rampage, Rampage is getting buffed. There will be more ammo to actually fire out of this weapon. That is a good thing. We next have the Suros precision shotguns. There's things like the first in, last out. You also have new monarchies and Iron Banner's precision shotguns, and these are going to be seeing an aim assist boost. And of course, these are slug shotguns, so in PvP, you want to land the headshots. You're going to get more aim assist to actually do that. These things aren't the easiest to use, but they are some of the more rewarding shotguns in the game, in my opinion. And then for sniper rifles, we've got mostly PvE changes in terms of damage, so more precision damage, more aim assist, and more ammo carry. And I think there are going to be two key players right here. Of course, all snipers are being affected, but if we look at the Maxim 11, which is the new monarchy sniper, this is the best handling sniper in PvP right now. It's got snapshot, it's got great scopes. If any sniper is going to stand out in Crucible, it's going to be Maxim. There is also Alone as a God, probably a close second to the Maxim for PvP, but it does have triple tap, which is going to be great in PvE. Of course, it gets that increased damage. It also has that bonus ammo inventory. We don't know exactly how good they're going to be or exactly how good they're going to feel. There are more changes to snipers coming in May, but regardless, Maxim 11 and Alone as a God are two of the key snipers to keep your eye on going into this update. So there we go, guys. Those are the main weapons I wanted to focus on. Of course, there are going to be more changes in the game, you know, in terms of power weapons in general. Fusion rifles are still going to be really, really good. I know I didn't mention fusion rifles. They'll have more ammo and things like that. As I previously mentioned, it's not like some stuff is getting buffed and a load of other stuff is getting nerfed. Everything is getting better. So really, I wanted to focus on the weapons that are going to see the most change per archetype, per the perks that they have, and all of that kind of stuff. So let me know, guys, what you think of the list. Are any of these weapons ones that you really want to try out? Are there any that weren't on this list that you're really curious to try out? Be sure to let us know in the comment section. I will keep you guys posted throughout the next couple of weeks with new content about, you know, kind of what's going off inside of the game. But if you have enjoyed this video, guys, a like is very much appreciated below. It really helps me out. If you're new to the channel, feel free to hit subscribe. If you want to see more Destiny 2 content, feel free to check out the links in the description. If you want to find me on Twitch, say hi on Twitter, or check out my Patreon page and our Discord. Any of that stuff, it will be down below. For now, though, I appreciate you guys as always. I will catch you very soon.